Penny, bless you for reading that. I told Rod I would see that it was read, but I couldn't do it. I would have cried too. I'm not going to promise I won't cry now. 2 Saturdays ago, Mike and I sat and we talked about today, about what he wanted his final services to look like. And Pastor Dan said at the start, Mike's comment was, I don't want a funeral. I want a celebration of life. As a believer, Mike understood that, God has promised us there's something else after, something much better. In 1 Corinthians 2:9, Paul, writing under the inspiration of God, writes, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived the things that God has provided for those who love Him. So I'm watching these pictures, guys. The mountains that Mike and family trips would go to, their family trip to Hawaii, the trip to Europe, the fishing trip that Doug and the other guys took, Paul, family on cruises, cruise we had in 2008. Mike had a privilege to do a lot of things. And what God is promising him there, in the words of that great theologian, Randy Bachman, you ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, it is just so much greater things out there that are promised him. So he wanted a celebration. The other thing I think about celebrating today, somebody comes up to Mike today and says, hey, Mike, what's your pain level at today? He says, it's at 0. Thanks for asking. That's been a long time since he's been able to say that. Mike wanted a celebration, so let's celebrate a little bit. I'm just blown away by all of the comments that have been said, and I'm hearkening Dan's comments as people getting up here and talking, and he made a comment that, you might want to write some stuff down, because I've had on more than one occasion to help people land the plane. They're out there circling around. So I could do that today just because there's so much I would want to say. But let's have an agreement. If I start going on international signal for land the plane, I'll bring it in. Mike was born November 5th, 1956, in Houston, really not far from where he was receiving medical treatments at MD Anderson. He was the oldest of Pat and Roy Harvard. I'm the second. Sweet sister Julie's the third. And we grew up in South Texas, moved around a little bit, and as I mentioned, summer before Mike's 5th grade year, we settled in Freeport on 10th Street. And wow, what a great place that was. I've seen emails from some of the 10th Street gang. You've heard some of the stories. It's just a great place. A lot of kids, a lot of outside stuff, tag and hide and seek and football. And what Terry didn't say is that I don't know if Mike was your first boyfriend. You might be around a little bit, but you were Mike's first boyfriend. And he had a crush on you. Just a little tip. I hadn't thought about this until you said it. Gwen was like my first girlfriend too, and tried to put my arm around her at a James Robinson crusade. That's not exactly what like third grade. It was a wonderful place to live. Our home was just full of love and laughter and generosity, full of music. Mike absorbed all of that, and when he went off to school at UT, he was so excited. He left with a confidence and with a drive and an optimism, a determination to do something special with his life. Mike graduated from UT, and I think as Rod's letter pointed out, his first sales call was really getting a job. Rockwell wanted an engineer, and he talked his way into that job. He found a career that he loved, a career that had meaning to him. And he he was so proud of the accomplishments that Doug had talked about and others. He found what Solomon writes about in Ecclesiastes. He's talking about contentedness, seeking for it in your life. And he kind of concludes after trying a bunch of stuff that in knowing God and in finding honest, gainful work that you love, that's where you find contentedness. And if you're out trying to find it in other things that the world has to offer, you're just chasing the wind. Mike was so proud of that. New Orleans is where he went afterward, and while it was the place that he went to work, God's plan was for him to meet Linda. And I remember, it seems like the first time y'all met was dancing somewhere. And I just remember him calling and talking about how different she was and how taken he was with her from the beginning. And he fell hard for her and never fell out of love. He was so proud of what you guys had done, the family you raised, the home that you guys had made, the life you had made together. He just so proud of that. The kids, you know how much he loved you. If you look for silver linings in this cancer, one of them was that he had a chance to tell you everything he wanted to tell you. And he loved you, and he was proud of you, and he's excited for what the future has for each one of you. Mike loved music. Man, he loved music. Growing up in our home, there was music always. And I remember, before there was a Name That Tune song, we had a game we played. I wasn't even in school yet. And it was called the humming game. And you would hum a few notes, and the other one would guess what it was, and you'd keep score. That first Christmas in Freeport, we each got a plastic guitar and a metal bay chord book that we split between us. And it was great because we had to learn it together. And we did, and something that we love to do all our life. You saw Mike, and maybe some of the pictures. He had no problem getting on stage and singing. He was a ham at heart and loved doing it. I'm guessing this may be the only funeral you've ever been at that you've heard Johnny be good. That was by design. We saw a lot of live music together. Mike took me the first time I ever country danced at Fairchild Hall. It was something he loved and enjoyed a lot. Sports, some of that's been talked about today, but he was a big fan. Rockets, Astros, Oilers when they were here, Texans, Saints. Man, he still was a Saints fan, and what a fun Super Bowl that was this year for him. And he loved to play. He was a competitor. Golf, tennis. Mike was an optimist. He was somebody that just lived. He lived large, and that showed no more. Exemplified it than the cancer that he had, the way he fought it. So optimistically, bravely, courageously, without complaint. For 50 years, I've got to watch Mike. He was someone I looked up to. I said it at y'all's rehearsal dinner nearly 25 years ago that he's my hero. He was then. He still is now. And, like a lot of you, I'm going to miss him every single day until I see him again. But I know I will see him again. And until then, I'm going to live life like he lived it as best I can. Live it large. Live it generously. Live it joyously. Live it for other people. Amen. And then live forever. Thanks a lot.